Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone to Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's 100th episode of The Bend. So today I have Dr. Mark Massaro, and Mark and I met on LinkedIn because we are both advocates for client service. He is a veterinarian born and raised in South Jersey. Both his parents are veterinarians, older brother and his aunt are all veterinarians. He graduated from Cornell Veterinary University in 2019, and we were just having a conversation. He did his internship at CARES in the middle of the pandemic, where he was charged with keeping the whiteboard moving and seeing many cases. He practiced 10 years in 1 year in that period of time. He is interested in management. We met because we were talking about technology and our love for AI and all the things that it can do from us. He has worked in on-site positions in Philadelphia, Houston, Texas, and Knoxville, Tennessee, and all of them centered around advancing technology in the veterinary industry, especially relating to electronic medical records and practice management software systems. He returned home in 2023 to South Jersey and now is the director of veterinary software for Meducate, a group of 7 hospitals. And he is interested outside of work in sports, as well as hanging out and hiking with his wife and their 3 dogs, the tree walker Conehound, because he was wearing a cone last week, miniature poodle, Texas pit bull, and 2 cats, which will not hike with him, even though he's tried. So, Mark, thanks for joining us today, and I'm very excited to share you with the universe at episode 100. When I started this, I never would have thought that I would be doing my 100th episode. And a couple of weeks ago, I said, I think I'm going to sit here and type a list of all the people that have been on this. And as I was looking through the list, I went, damn, that's a lot of cool people that I have talked to, and I really have enjoyed it a lot. But I started it in the middle of COVID because people were just really stressed, and I wanted to give them a little light at the end of the tunnel, and talking about how sometimes these crazy bends in life work out very well when you look back at them and you think, oh yeah, I made it through that. So tell us a little bit. I mean, did you even have a choice about being a veterinarian?
Yeah. That's all. Everyone asked me that. Like, did your parents force you? It was actually the opposite. They were like, you should look at other career options. Like, you shouldn't have such tunnel vision. So yeah, they kind of pushed me to consider other things, and then I just came back to it anyway. I do first have to say that I'm so thrilled to be here. You know this. I've been following you forever. I really got into LinkedIn maybe a few years ago. At one point, I was even debating going off on my own and starting my own independent veterinary technology consulting firm. And I reached out to you for help with that process. I didn't end up doing it, but to be on the Debbie Boone podcast for me is I'm fangirling here a little bit. But
thank you.
And then you said talk about 100 episodes. It's incredible. We were just talking about a new initiative that I'm part of that I'm sure we'll get to called Flair Vet, which we have 0 episodes right now. We're trying to start it. So the idea that maybe in a couple of years we'll have 100 episodes would be amazing. But
maybe
so yeah, being a veterinarian. So I grew up in the clinic, and I do mean that literally and figuratively. I was always going into the hospital. Both of my parents are veterinarians. I just loved being in the clinic in the summers. If I, was home from school, I would go to the clinic. And again, they told me you should I was whatever, 5, 6, 7 years old. They're like, you should consider other careers.
Mhm.
But my theory always was, I've been doing this for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, going into the clinic with my parents, and I still love it. So I would assume if I've loved it for 20 years, I'm going to love it for the next 50 type of thing. So like, it was something that came naturally to me. I loved every part of it.
Mhm.
I started out cleaning kennels and cleaning tables and doing fecal flotations. And then then I was allowed to draw blood. And then I was allowed in, and then eventually, I came home and practiced with my parents as an associate veterinarian. The opposite of what people think, but it just was, I never really had a doubt in my mind that I want to do what my mom and dad, my mom and my dad were my heroes growing up. And I was like, I want to do what they do.
Yeah. Were they small animal practitioners?
Small animal, yeah.
Small animal.
So, and actually something I didn't even mention, I could, from where I'm sitting right now, I could easily hit their hospital with a rock.
Oh,
So the original owner built the hospital in like 1990 on her detached garage, or she bought the house and then she built the hospital on the detached garage, and then she ended up selling it to my parents. She only was there for a couple years, and then she decided she wanted to do something else. But I live in that house.
oh my goodness.
So because it's a residentially zoned area, my parents have said, "Oh, I wish we could bulldoze the house," because they
Mhm.
don't like being landlords. They're veterinarians. They don't want to be landlords.
Okay.
So we've had veterinary technicians live here. My brother lived here. I've lived here. I had a couple stints, but so when we moved back into the house, and my backyard and the dog walking area it's separated by a fence, but they are the same piece of grass.
Uh-huh. Oh my.
And I park in the parking lot. I don't have a driveway. I
Uh-huh.
have marked parking spaces, reserved parking spaces
Uh,
in the animal hospital parking lot. So
Oh my God.
even though I don't work there anymore, it's
Uh-huh.
still obviously a huge part of my life. I mean, I see it every day.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, that's really going home again. Really, you're
yes,
you're
yeah.
truly going
But yeah,
home again.
small animal, dogs and cats. One of their associates does a lot of pocket pets.
Uh-huh.
But vast majority of what they do
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
dogs and cats. Yeah.
So are you practicing medicine or are you just
I
mostly home?
haven't practiced medicine since I left the family business in like 2021.
Mhm.
So I really haven't practiced medicine I did for a couple of months when I really couldn't find a job.
Mhm.
I was practicing, but I really haven't practiced medicine in about 4 years,
Yeah.
which is crazy. It feels like it wasn't that long ago, but then I think about it, I'm like, I've been doing veterinary software, veterinary technology for twice as long as I practiced,
Yeah.
because I practiced for 2 years. I like that you put the COVID internship with like practicing for 10 years in one, because sometimes people will say, oh, you only practiced for 2 years. I'm like, yeah, but one of those two was a COVID internship. So
Yeah.
like that counts. That's got to count for something.
Like drinking from a fire hose. You you
Yeah.
you would see a lot of everything during that period of time. So, I mean, obviously, this is a curveball, and I like to talk about the
Yes.
curveball. How did you say, okay, all my life I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I love the practice of medicine, and I love doing this. How did you move into software?
Yeah. So when I was reading your guide, like the guide to the Debbie Boone, the Ben podcast, I was like, oh God, this really is me. Um, and like it's funny. When I was reading it, I actually texted my wife this morning. I was like, I gotta be careful and not get like super emotional on this, because sometimes I get emotional about it. And it's really to this day, it's my big passion outside of what I do is mental health in the veterinary
Mhm.
field. And I used to lie, or I used to, kind of word my way around what actually happened.
Mhm.
Like even in my bio that I sent you, I said like Dr. Massaro's interest in the veterinary technology space grew. That's actually not really what happened.
Mhm.
What really happened was I was severely depressed, and I had undiagnosed, untreated anxiety and depression and compassion fatigue and burnout and imposter syndrome, severe suicidal ideation. And as you can imagine, I only ever wanted to do one thing my entire life,
Mhm.
was to be like my mom and dad and to be a veterinarian. So the idea that I wasn't going to be successful in that made no sense. It made no sense to me. It made no sense to my friends, my family. I mean, you could talk to people I went to middle school with or went to high school with, and they're like, oh yeah, that's that guy that wanted to be a vet and wanted to take over his family's practice. That is who I was as a human being.
Mhm.
So to reckon with debilitating imposter syndrome and try to figure out we spent a lot of time. I saw wellness appointments only. I worked part-time. I was in therapy. I was taking medication to reckon with the idea that potentially the solution to this problem is that Mark just doesn't practice medicine anymore was, I mean, you could say that sentence out loud. I mean, that was a year probably of back and forth and trying to figure it out until we finally got to the point of Mark just doesn't practice anymore.
Mhm.
And then in reality, this second career was out of necessity because I needed to put food on the table. I needed to make money. I had to pay rent. I had to pay for groceries. And I got very lucky, and I networking and friends of friends, and people helped me out here and there, and people gave me a job when they didn't really need to give me a job. And I found this second career, this which I now love and I'm super passionate about. And I feel very lucky, and I try to help others with the same thing. But it wasn't like one day I woke up and was like, oh, I want to be a veterinary software guy. It
Yeah.
was, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
I actually was vomiting. I wrote about this in this one post, and actually I've had multiple people reach out that have said that I thought I was the only one. I didn't know
Mhm.
anybody. I
Mhm.
was like, I'm a cat, essentially was my analogy. Like I get so stressed that I vomit, and I was vomiting 10, 15 times a
Oh my
day,
gosh.
and it was in between appointments. So I would have a 9 a.m. vomit, a 9:30 vomit, 10 vomit, 11. Like it was like I was
Yeah.
vomiting in between my appointments, and I was trying to hide it from the staff.
Uh-huh.
So I would run to the bathroom, or I would run outside to the dog walking area because I didn't want anyone. And I actually was relatively successful. Nobody said anything.
Yeah.
It's for
Yeah.
like, and there was a month in like whatever it was, 2021, where I threw up every single day, 10 to 15 times a day. And I actually ulcerated my esophagus. I ulcerated the back of my throat, and I was losing weight. It was like
I was going to say that's so
I
bad for
was
your
truly,
health.
truly destroying
Yeah.
myself mentally
Yeah.
and physically. And so when people say to this day, because I don't tell everybody,
Mhm.
right? People say, oh, why don't you practice anymore? And I'm like, oh, I found this new career. But like to this day, people will say, oh, you can do it. I bet you can figure it. I'm like, you don't understand what it's like to have an ulcerated throat because you vomited 100
Yeah.
times in the last 3 weeks. Like
Oh yeah.
no, unless you've gone through something like that, you don't know what that's like. And to
Right.
wake up every day suicidal, to go to
Yeah.
bed every day suicidal. Christy Cornelius, who I know
Mhm.
has inspired me to be a little bit more frank about these things.
Mhm.
Again, even now, I kind of word my way around things, but she's like, we need to talk about this
Yeah.
in our profession.
Mark, and I really want to say something here because if anybody was going to be successful in veterinary medicine, it was you. You
I mean,
grew up in it, right?
when people
You had just
say,
been
yeah, the
immersed
imposter
in it,
syndrome, right?
right?
Like,
That seems so amazing to me because, I've been on the periphery of veterinary medicine my whole life.
right.
But I mean, I wanted to be a vet from the time I was 5 years old. It
Yeah,
was
right.
I applied to one school, NC
Yeah.
State, and they didn't have a vet school when I graduated, so I would have had to go back. And then I decided I would rather boss the veterinarians around than be
Yeah.
one,
Right.
right? So it worked out for me. But being on the periphery of it, I have picked up tons of information. So I can imagine that you
Yeah.
just were immersed in it.
I
And
mean, it was my life. It was
yeah.
veterinary medicine for me wasn't, and a lot of people are like this. They wanted to be a vet since they were little,
Mhm.
but how many people, my brother's older than me, right?
Mhm.
So my met in school. My brother, who's 4 years older than me, went to veterinary school, married his internship mate, and then I went to veterinary school. So, I mean, it was, like I said, everyone who's ever known me my entire life is, oh, that's that vet guy who wants to be a vet, who wants to take over his family's practice. I mean, it's all I ever knew. And so, and yeah, when I got to vet school, like some of my classmates that didn't have as much experience, they would ask me questions like,
Mhm.
hey Mark, can I ask you about, and I'd be like, yeah, my
Yeah.
mom saw a case like that 5 years ago or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. You've got
Um,
all that knowledge from just being around it all the
and
time.
so, yeah, in terms of being set up for success,
Yeah.
and a lot, and people ask about this too, like my parents were like awesome. My brother was amazing in terms of mentoring me when I came out of vet school. And I had so many people tell me, you just have to get more confidence. You just need to practice longer, get more experience, get more confidence. And I do think a lot of this is a little bit of a misnomer in terms of and I think there's a difference.
Hmm.
There's a difference between a young vet who just needs more confidence and needs more experience.
Hmm.
And there's a difference between someone who truly is not mentally fit. And again, like I'm not saying there's not things you can work on. There are
Hmm.
strategies, but and some people may disagree with me. I truly believe the way my brain is wired in terms of my anxiety, my depression, I think I truly have a medical thing with
Hmm.
my brain. I could do therapy for 100 years and I still don't think practicing would be the right
Hmm.
thing for me.
Hmm.
Because it's one thing about easy vets. There's a problem with easy vet and we need your help to fix it. It's another thing about, does this dog have Cushing's or does it have, I mean,
Yeah.
I treated every single case like it was a life or death decision. Like,
Uh,
I tell the story about, I had a complete breakdown about whether or not to use Clavamox versus doxycycline in URI cats because of the spectrum of susceptibility of the bacteria. That's not normal. Like,
Right.
you shouldn't be
Right.
obsessing over which
Yeah.
antibiotic to give an animal who's going to get better anyway,
Right.
whether or not you
Whether you
even
even treat it or not, usually. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't that I didn't have enough resources. It
Mhm.
wasn't that I wasn't smart enough. It was truly my brain is not
Right.
wired for this. No, I didn't want to leave. I love
Yeah.
veterinary medicine with all my heart. I have so much respect for every veterinarian, every CSR, every technician, every assistant, but it just wasn't. And I miss being on the floor. If
Hmm.
there was a career I could do where I could still be on the floor, I actually worked as a technician a little bit in between jobs. I convinced somebody. I said, "Listen, I know the resume says doctor, but I don't want to be a doctor. I really would like you to hire me as a technician." And she was like, "This is weird, but sure." And that was that was huge for me because I
Yeah.
was really struggling
Kind
with
of like your sweet spot there that you
and
got
I was a
to.
technician for 5 months
Yeah.
and I loved it. I
Uh-huh.
love placing catheters. I monitored anesthesia. I worked with the veterinarians and we kind of was like a little bit of a open secret at the hospital. Like
Uh-huh.
some people knew, some people didn't, and people would find out and they would be like, "You're a vet?"
Yeah.
But then again, I found this technology thing and I'm like, "Oh, maybe okay, that I think
Yeah.
that could be my niche,
Yeah.
whatever."
Yeah. Well,
But no, you're
personally,
right. Nobody
I'm
was set up for success more than I was.
yeah, no, really. Well, personally, I think we desperately need more veterinarians who are doing technology because
Yes.
over all the years that I have worked in a multitude of PIMS, I
Yeah.
kind of look at them and go, really? The
Somebody just
workflows?
commented that. So I'm in
I mean, have you never been in a building with a veterinary practitioner before?
you're hitting the nail on the head where somebody this was literally 3 days ago
Uh-huh.
that somebody tagged me on a NomV post.
Uh-huh.
Somebody like asking about alternative careers and they're like, Mark would be a good person to talk to
Yeah.
you. And I commented and I said, I transitioned from veterinary practice into veterinary software and PIMS is my
Mhm.
specialty. And they said, "Oh my God, I've always found it so interesting because from my perspective, it feels like there was never a veterinarian in the room when they were designing these programs."
100%.
And I hate to break it to you, there
There
wasn't because
wasn't.
there
There
wasn't
wasn't.
because
No.
so once I started on this journey, I was in the room. I started to get in the room. I worked for multiple companies.
Hmm.
They put me in the room. It
Hmm.
was VP of engineering, VP of customer support, and Mark, and VP of sales and Mark. And I was in the room. I wasn't
Uh-huh.
a VP, but I had a lot of titles.
Uh-huh.
Subject matter expert is a lot of what people refer to it
Sure.
as a SME. I was a SME a lot of the
Uh-huh.
times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was fairly obvious that, and people told me this. They're like, "Oh, you're the first vet that like would come to that we've had." And I'm like, "That's probably not a good
Not a
thing
good
that
thing.
there's not
No.
regularly."
Yeah.
And like, it's very different. to have a consultant, right? So you have a veterinarian who's practicing, who owns
Mhm.
their own practice, whatever, and you say, hey, can you jump on a Zoom call for us for an hour and we show you certain features and you tell us what you like and what you don't like? That is different than it being your full-time job. I was available to my teams we say 40 hours a week. I was
Mhm.
available to my team 60 plus hours a week. They could ask me anything about anything.
Uh-huh.
And that's not super. If you look at the employee list of all the PIMS out there, you're not going to see a ton of veterinarians, right? Because
Yeah.
veterinarians want to be veterinarians.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. We need more. One of the major reasons I think PIMS are people, they don't have a great reputation. People
No.
don't like them. They're a little counterintuitive. Sometimes they're a little bit difficult to
Mhm.
use.
Yep.
I think is because there wasn't a veterinarian in the room.
Right.
So
Right. Well,
yeah,
Cindy Barnes created
yeah,
Shepherd.
Cindy.
And
Yeah,
and Cindy said,
Pepper.
I wanted all this stuff and nobody was building anything that I could use.
I to this day, when people ask me, because the number one question I get now is what program should I use, right?
Uh-huh.
And I used to do that stupid thing where I would say, oh, well, it depends, and it depends
Yeah.
on your needs. And that is true, right? The best PIMS for a 2-doctor GP versus a 70-doctor emergency specialty hospital, those are two different
Those are
PIMS.
different animals
But
though.
that said, for the last few years, when people ask me about GP, I say I give them a list,
Uh-huh.
but I always say
Yeah.
Shepherd towards the top. And one of
Yeah.
the reasons is you can tell that
Yeah.
Shepherd was designed by a veterinarian.
By a
You can
veterinarian.
see Cindy
Yes.
Barnes' influence because it makes sense. The
Uh-huh.
soap form makes sense. SOAP.
Yeah.
Where you put in your diagnosis, where you put in your discharge notes. And I don't get any kickback. I get nothing from saying
Right.
this. I've never even used Shepherd in
Yeah.
practice, but I've done enough demos of enough programs.
Mhm.
And then one of my former bosses, Caleb Frankel, was the same way, where he was a veterinarian. He
Mhm.
saw a gap in the industry. Digital treatment sheets were not good
Mhm.
or didn't really even exist. So the Caleb Frankels of the world, the Cindy Barnes of the world, veterinarians that went out and created a program.
Mhm.
So that's amazing as well. But
Yeah.
there's again, like other than those programs, if you look at the Goliaths of this
Yeah.
industry, I know maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I would be willing to bet if you got an Excel spreadsheet of every single human that works at those companies, there's not a lot of DVMs and VMDs and BSV, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a ton of veterinarians on those lists. And I
Or
think
or CVPMs, Mark,
or
because
CVPMs or well now I
the
will say
other part of it is the business part of
the
it,
business
the
part. Yeah.
reports and stuff that many of them create. Some of them are useless
Yes.
because they can, right? And
Yeah.
then the ones that you really need are formatted in a way that are not
And
helpful.
again, it's not I'm not trying to play the blame game
Yeah.
here, right? But and again, I think part of the problem is not that they're not trying. They
Yeah.
are reaching out to CVPMs and practice managers and
Yeah.
veterinarians, and they do this thing where they consult with them. Can
Sure.
we get you on a Zoom call? Sometimes they pay them.
Uh-huh.
People reach out to me regularly now and say, "We'll pay you for your
Uh-huh.
expertise." That is not the same as that being your full-time job.
Right.
Doing it for an hour and doing it for 50 hours a week and you
Yeah.
devoting all your time and energy to making the program as good as it can be.
Hmm.
I'll say so CVPMs, we need more of them in software. LVTs and technicians, we're starting to get more. It's not necessarily a good thing. It's because they're burning out and
Right.
they want to do something different and they can make a good living
Mhm.
working in customer support or working in sales or product or whatever. But yeah, no, like we need more vets, CSRs, practice managers, technicians, people with real world experience
Mhm.
to work for these companies. And I say it all the time. If somebody's selling me something and they've actually worked in an animal hospital before, I'm listening more
Right.
than somebody who's never worked in an
Yeah.
animal hospital. If I reach out to customer support and the person worked in an animal hospital for 10 years versus they've never worked in an animal
Mhm.
hospital, I know that person understands what I'm going through. They
Right.
understand,
I get it.
oh my God, this guy is such a complainer. He
Yeah.
always complains about the records dashboard. He always complains about the vaccine tab versus I know exactly why he's upset.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, no, we need more.
Yeah, we do. We do. Well, I remember many years ago, one of the big pharma companies called me up to their home office and they said, will you teach our sales reps how
Mm.
to train customer service for CSRs? And I said, no, they have
Yeah, not a good
they
idea.
have no credibility whatsoever because
And
they're not
it just comes off, even if they're saying the right things. Let's say they
yeah,
read the Debbie Boone script,
right.
it comes off as fake because they were never a
They were
CSR.
never a CSR. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I said, but what I can teach them is what they already know, which is client service and sales skills, which both are talents that CSRs actually need because that is your sales force at the front desk. And I said, I can create a presentation like that they can give, but no, I can't teach them how to be good CSRs
I love
because
that
you
you
have,
push back on that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah, you got to live it in order to be able to do it. And I feel like we have a lot of people in our profession or who are speakers or and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus because everybody
I know
has
I have to be careful
their
about that.
thing here, but there's a whole lot of people who jump on a bandwagon. And I mean, I've had people ask me if I could teach DEI stuff. And they're like, no, I have
I'm
no,
not the person to teach that. Yeah.
no. I mean,
No, I
I
get what you're
understand the
saying.
concepts, I understand communication, I understand bias and cultural bias. I talk about it, but I've not had that lived experience. And so I'm not going to abscond somebody else's lived experience and try to sell it. It's not the way it works. So
Yeah.
I turn that kind of stuff down. But there, I think that somebody asked me the other day, they were interviewing me about wellness plans. And years ago, I wrote a book with Dr. Wendy Hauser on how to set up wellness plans. And she said, we don't really hear much about them anymore. I said, because it's always the flavor of the day.
Yeah.
Whatever we're talking about in vet med is now, and now we've moved to well-being,
AI, yeah.
AI, and yeah, so
What's the sexy thing these days? But yeah,
right.
wellness plans at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, they were, but we still could use those because we're talking about, spectrum of care and helping people afford care, and wellness plans are one of the things that we can do. And but we can't just drop things because they're no longer the thing, right? They're still valid things to do. And we need to make sure that we're talking about all the things that can help us live better lives in veterinary medicine. And that includes helping our clients be able to afford the care that we can
Yeah.
give. That's a
I love
huge
that you
part.
brought up wellness plans.
Yeah,
Wellness plans, I think, might be the best example I've ever seen in software of do it well or don't do it.
100%.
It's one of those things where if you sign up a bunch of people on wellness plans, but you don't really invest the time and energy to make sure they're set up appropriately, to make sure that the billing is working, to make sure that when they do use a certain service at your hospital, that it is attributed
Hmm.
appropriately, then don't do it.
Right.
Doing it halfway is worse than not doing it at all. And I
100%.
think wellness plans is, again, in my experience, is the best example of that. Now, that theory, I think, is true for pretty much everything in
Hmm.
veterinary software,
Hmm.
but I don't think anything highlights it quite like a wellness
No,
plan program
no,
does.
it can be so incredibly unwieldy. Um, when Wendy and I wrote our book, she had a friend and she said, oh, I'm really doing these wellness plans and I want you to take a look at them. And Wendy's my math whiz. So she was doing the math. Her dad was a professor at MIT. So she got the math brain. And she started to do the math. And this whole year of care that this veterinarian was giving to her clients made her $8.
Yeah, I
$8.
actually, that's better than what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, yeah.
One
Sometimes
of
they
those
go in the
where
home.
you lose money, right? Like if
Yes.
they're not set up appropriately, you're like,
Yes.
you are losing money.
Right.
Or what, what, so a business owner would say that's the worst case scenario.
Oh,
From a client perspective, where it's not a scam because you didn't intend for it to be a scam, but like it would have been less money if they had just paid for the services. Like the math, again, I refer to other people in terms of the math as well, but like it has to make sense. The
right.
math has to make sense.
It does. It absolutely does. And a lot of the wellness plans throw in like international health certificates. Now, chances are really good that you're not going to have a client who's traveling internationally every year so that you're going to do a health certificate. So it's fluff, right? It's just fluff. But anyway, we definitely could
We could
get
talk about wellness plans. That could be an hour podcast, could
oh, it
just be
really
about
could.
wellness plans and veterinary
It,
software.
it could be. It could be. Um, so tell me how you moved into the software thing, or how
Yeah.
did you develop your interest in the software? Because a lot of people are truly in your same boat where they love, like me, like I love the periphery of veterinary medicine, but
Yes.
um they're looking to do some kind of different work.
Something else.
Like
Like
we
they just
think
don't
we're
want to
so
be clinical
limited.
anymore. They don't
Yeah.
know, and I was the same way. They don't know what they want to do,
Mhm.
but they don't want to be clinical anymore, whether they're veterinarians, whether they're technicians. And the true answer is I sent a Facebook message to somebody. That was the real answer of like, but the bigger answer is I think it's always been probably what I was probably more suited for. I just my veterinary school signed on with the AI company that I'm an advisor for.
Oh, uh-huh.
And I went up to the vet school and I was teaching the vets how to use the AI. And one of my professors said, I knew this because when I was in vet school, as a fourth year veterinary student, I was teaching my professors how to use the program we were using at the time.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was an intern. I was teaching the 20-year veteran doctors how to use the program that I had only started using 4 months ago. And they were like, how do you know how to do this? I think it's just something that came naturally to me.
Mhm.
I'm a millennial. I grew up with computers, but if you had asked me at the time, I didn't know that this was going to be my career,
Mhm.
but I couldn't find a job is the truth in terms of I was out of practice for 2 years. Nobody counted my COVID year for extra years.
Mhm.
And so I applied to every single thing I could think of. I'm a vet. I don't want to be a vet anymore. Where should I apply? Hills, IDEX, Zoetis, Antech. I mean, I submitted applications everywhere and I heard the same thing every time. You don't have enough experience.
Mhm.
You are only looking for veterinarians for whatever role,
Mhm.
field representative. There's, these companies do hire
They
veterinarians.
do. They have
You
field
had to have a
services.
minimum of 3 to 5 years of experience. And on paper, I had 2 years of experience. And actually, a lot of them only counted the one because they don't really count the internship.
Mhm.
I was only an associate veterinarian for 11 months.
Mhm.
So every company said no. And then
Mhm.
it wasn't even like, we'll give you an interview. It was no.
Right.
And so I was like, uh-oh. Everybody in vet school told me this degree was so versatile and I could get all these other jobs, but where are these other jobs? I'm a little confused about that. And I was on Facebook and my feed was just covered in posts about Washington Avenue Animal Hospital. It turns out, I lived 20 minutes from Philadelphia, we were talking about. And so I had friends of friends. I didn't know this guy. His name was Pete Lands. I didn't know him or who he was, but we had mutual friends on Facebook, and I guess I was in the radius. And every time I logged into Facebook, it was, we're hiring, we're hiring, we're hiring. We need you, we need you. He wanted veterinarians and technicians and blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. Brand new hospital. And the pictures, I mean, it's gorgeous, like glass, glass walls, floor to ceiling. It was like this beautiful brand new animal hospital. And I sent him a Facebook message and I said, listen, I know you want veterinarians. I don't want to practice anymore. You just opened a brand new hospital. I don't know, maybe I can help in some way. Like, I have no idea what I'll do, but maybe I can help. It's a
Mhm.
new hospital, you have needs.
Mhm.
And he said, I mean, let's get dinner. Let's get dinner and just see. I remember this like it was yesterday. So I went to dinner with Pete and Steph, who was his practice manager, who had been a tech for years and years, and then she became a practice manager, and we just hit it off. Like it just was, we were like, there's something here.
Mhm.
And so he said, I don't care what you do, but you're gonna come work for me. And I was like, okay. And I still was weird about it because I didn't have a job. And I said, no, I don't want you to pay me, actually.
Uh-huh.
I said, I'm gonna come, you're gonna pay me nothing. I'm gonna come for free. And let's actually find out if I'm useful. Because
Uh-huh.
I don't want you to pay me for me to not be
Like just
useful.
because you like me, right? Just because you
Yeah.
like
And
me.
so I started going
Mhm.
3 days a week. I was still seeing cases. I was seeing wellness appointments only part-time. We were trying to still try to figure out me being a vet. And I went like 2 or 3 days a week into Philly. And I just was like, I'm here. How can I help? And Steph, bless her, I love Steph, bless her heart. She hated the PIMS that they were using. She was frustrated by it. It's just not her jam. Technology wasn't her jam. She was amazing at HR and inventory and all the other things that a practice manager needs to be really, really good at. But she was like, it just was so frustrating when there were PIMS problems.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'll do it. And she was like, okay. So I mean, I didn't call myself this at the time, but I was the PIMS director for this hospital with like 4 veterinarians. Like normally those hospitals don't have a PIMS director.
Right, sure.
We ended up coming up with operations manager, which what I've learned now is that operations is the most meaningless word in business because all it means is you put out fires, right? It's
You do you do everything.
and firefighter are the same thing. It's just when things are broken, you fix them. So like one day they said, Mark, the anesthesia machine's not working. Can you call the company and figure out why it's not working? The CBC machine is down. The Wi-Fi is down. Like what, it didn't matter. Whatever needed fixing, I fixed it. Now 90% of the time, what needed fixing was the PIMS. So I did that for only a few months actually. And Pete came to me and said, you're doing great. I love everything you're doing. I'm about to open a giant emergency and specialty hospital in Philadelphia. We talked about this before, that there was a real need. Like in Philadelphia, the only place for people to go was UPenn. And there wasn't really like a big privately owned emergency specialty hospital in the city. And he had a group of partners, specialists that were going to open PACE. Now people watching this now know what PACE is. But at the time, PACE didn't exist, right? This was 2021, whatever. And he said, I want you to do exactly what you're doing now for PACE. I want you to be the PIMS guy for PACE. I said, great. Are we using EVET? And he said, no, we're using Instinct. And I was like, I've never heard of that in my life. I don't even know what that is. It's a treatment sheet program that some of the partners used on their residencies at AMC. We were joking we were going to be AMC of Philadelphia because half of the partners were AMC residents, and that's what we met.
The emergency doctors love it.
Yes. And then, but Instinct had just released their full EMR, and we were going to be one of the first big hospitals on the full EMR. And so I said, great. How can I learn more about the program? But it didn't exist yet because the hospital hadn't opened yet. I couldn't like just go in and click around and learn how to use it. And he's like, I don't know. That's one of the other partners is in charge of that. Talk to him. So I reached out. He wasn't even living in Philadelphia at the time. He was still in like Chicago or whatever. And so he said, send me these spreadsheets with 3,000 lines on a spreadsheet. Every single drug we were going to carry, tablet. And I was like, can you help me with these spreadsheets? I was like, okay. So I did. I helped with the spreadsheets, but I wasn't learning how to use the program by helping with the spreadsheets. So I said to him one day, I was like, who can teach me about the program? He's like, oh, you should talk to Melissa Anderson. She's our implementation manager or whatever. And I mean, this is a true story. So like I tell this story all the time, and it's, but so I got on a call with her. It was May 3rd. This was really like, again, I was May 3rd. And I said, she said, who are you? I said, oh, I'm an operations manager for this hospital. My boss is a partner. She's like, okay, so are you my point of contact now? And I was like, I don't know. I just want to learn more about what's happening. And she said, all right, well, she pulls up the roadmap, the implementation roadmap. You know all about this, right?
Yeah.
And there was 12 steps on the roadmap. And we were on step 2. And we had a giant 20-foot banner on a warehouse in Philadelphia that said PACE opening June 16th. And it was May 3rd, right? Yeah, you know where this is going, right?
Oh, I do.
So we were 6 weeks away from our grand opening. And there was a 20-foot banner that it said June 16th. And I said, I don't understand. You keep saying all this stuff that we have to do. How are we going to go from step 2 to step 12 in 6 weeks? And she's like, we need to talk because can you guys push back your grand opening? And I was like, no, there's a 20-foot banner on a building. No, we cannot push back our grand opening. I said, how long does it take to get from step 2 to 12? She said like 6 months, like 3 to 6 months.
Oh.
And I was like, uh-oh. I said, what are we going to do? I said, if you and I, because by that time we were on the Zoom call for 50 minutes. We'd been talking. I said, okay. I love PIMS. This is my job. This is what my boss wants me to do. If I do this, this is my job, is to do this roadmap. and I do this for 40 hours a week. Can I get it done in 6 weeks? And she was like, I don't know. So I left the Zoom call and I called my boss. I was like, we need to talk. I said, we're building a car and the car needs to drive in 6 weeks and there's no doors, no steering wheel, no tires. That was my analogy I came up with at the time. And he was like, okay. So then I got on a call with all the partners. None of them had ever met me. This was my first time on a Zoom call with
Oh,
any of these
wow.
people. And I said, none of you guys have met me. I'm asking you to give me full control over this project. You've never met me.
Mhm.
But I can't get it done without like full admin
Yeah.
privilege. But if you're willing, I will do this. And they were like, take
Yeah.
it, take
Take
it.
it. Take it.
They were working on floor plans. They were designing their ICU. They were figuring out where the CT machine was going to go. They were like, yeah, no, we don't care if we've never met you. Please take this. So I did. We, by the skin of our teeth, we finished the roadmap and we built our hospital's instinct in 6 weeks,
Oh,
me
wow.
and the support agent. By the end of the 6 weeks, so then we opened, and then I was the instinct guy, right? So I trained every single human at that hospital had to sit with me for multiple training sessions about how to use the program. I held multiple training sessions. I met with people individually. So instinct was me, I was instinct type of thing.
Yeah.
And so a couple months into opening, Melissa and I were very close, obviously, and I was close with our on-site implementation people. And it wasn't the first time we had talked about it, but she was like, you need to come over here.
Uh-huh.
There were issues with the program,
Mhm.
right? It was
Mhm.
as with any new program.
Oh, yeah. There's always glitches. It's kind of like a new drug. Until it gets out into the
Right.
population, you don't really see.
And the joke was, I wish I had one I could send you. I have it somewhere. They made memes about me. The customer support people made memes about me. And there was a meme that anybody watching this could look it up. There's a guy, he's like almost looks like an anime character. He's got like glasses and he's holding a butterfly and the butterfly flies away from his hand. And the meme was, I log into Intercom, which was the support. It was the Instinct employees
Uh,
made this meme. And it was, I log into Intercom, my confidence. And then it says Mark Massaro logs on and the butterfly flew away. Because they would see me log on and they were like, oh
oh
no,
no.
not this guy. And we would say all the time, oh, that guy knows more about Instinct than Instinct knows about
Uh-huh.
Instinct. Because I knew everything about they
Uh-huh.
would release a feature, and 20 minutes later I said, there's a bug with your new feature. And they were like, what?
Yeah.
How do you even
How
know
do you
that?
even know that? Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
so they were not hiring for a me.
Hmm.
We talked about this. They were not hiring for a veterinarian, but what they were hiring for was a product manager. I had never heard of a product manager in my life. I didn't know what product was. I was like,
Uh-huh.
isn't that just like, what is product? I don't understand. What even is that? What does that mean? And they were very honest with me. They said, we would like you to apply. Melissa thinks very highly of you. She thinks you're the best. So we would like you to apply. We do not think you're going to get the job. We are planning on hiring a experienced product manager, somebody who knows how to do the job, but there's no other job for you to apply for. So just apply for this one and then we'll meet you and do interviews and whatever. And I use this to this day when people reach out to me asking me for advice for finding a new career. I attacked that interview process like nothing. I went super, super hard to the point where I read the job description. I looked up all the programs that they listed. It said qualifications, experience in, and I had zero experience in any of the programs that they listed. I downloaded free trials of all of them and I taught myself how to use all the programs.
Oh my gosh.
And then when I showed up to my interview, so one of the programs was Figma, which again, anybody watching this episode who knows anything about software, they know what Figma is, which is a design tool, a prototyping tool. It's how you make the wireframes and the design for what is my website going to look like? What is
Hmm.
my program going to look like? I taught myself basic Figma. I picked out one of the biggest issues I had with the current program. I made Figma prototypes for how I would fix it. And then on my interview, I presented it to them. And they were like, who the heck is this guy? Like what? Like what? I thought this was the vet that was applying for the job. Why are you showing us Figma prototypes? And I was like, I'm trying to show you that I can do this, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the other thing I said was all these other people applying for this job, they've got 10 years of software experience.
Mhm.
They have zero, and we just talked about this. They have zero real life clinical experience.
Yes.
I'd be willing to bet that I could learn their job faster than they can learn my job. I'm
Uh-huh.
going to stack up my 20 years of veterinary experience against their 10 years of software experience. I bet you I could learn everything about software faster than they could learn everything about veterinary medicine. And I'll actually raise you one. They will never learn everything I know about veterinary medicine unless they work in an animal hospital for 20 years, which I don't think they're going to do anytime soon.
Yeah.
And they were like, the hiring team was like, oh, fine, whatever, you're hired. Like, chill out.
This is the guy. This is the guy.
And that really was the most formative job. I joke about it all the time. I've had 7 jobs in 4 years. It's a lot of jobs, but that job, being the first official product manager at Instinct, that is where I learned everything, my whole foundation about what is front end, what is back end. What I joke about all the time. I said the number of humans that know what IMHA is and know what a floating modal is, I could probably count on one hand. Somebody who can explain both of those things in depth,
Uh-huh.
and I count myself as one of those people.
Uh-huh.
What is a dialogue box? What is an action button? You know what I mean? Like, what's a user story? How do you write user stories? What's a ticket? What's the difference between a ticket and an epic? Like, nobody taught me that in veterinary school. And so that is really what sent me down this path of, I didn't know it at the time, but I didn't really want to be on that side, the software side. It was like, I thought that's where I wanted my career to go because I didn't want to practice. But my current job is actually what I really wanted, where I still go into the hospitals. I meet with the teams. I have relationships with my practice managers, with my veterinarians. I am part of the hospital. I'm still part of the clinic, but I'm their internal PIMS director as opposed to being a product manager at a software company and working remotely. That was hard for me to not be around people.
Yeah.
So a very long-winded answer.
Yeah.
But that's really what got me down this road.
Yeah.
The Facebook message, a Facebook DM, because I needed a job.
Yeah. That's, what. Well, I feel like sometimes, and when I sent you the questions, that I always like to talk about the value of networking.
Yes.
Because people look at it, and I've talked to a lot of people, like I said, I've done 100 episodes now. Like, what do you feel like about networking? And some people are like, oh, it's kind of like used car salesman. I feel like it's pushy. And anyway, that's not networking. That's glad handing people to get something out of them. I feel like when you network with others, you're bringing more to the table than you're trying to take away. You're saying,
if you come to it honestly, and you're not saying, I'm trying to get something out of you, you're trying to get something out of me, let's just meet each other. I've done this so many times. I did this with you. Can we meet and just talk? And then who knows, maybe none of us, maybe we never speak again, but more often than not, it turns into either you introduce me to a friend of yours and that person really helps me out, or maybe I can help you out, or maybe my friend can help you out. The number of times I've either gotten a job or gotten a friend a job, or just had 2 people connect that really jived and really helped each other. And it's just networking for the sake of networking. I couldn't agree more. I think it's one of the most undervalued and underutilized, undertaught skills. Nobody teaches you how to, it's kind of learn by doing type of thing. But I do a lot of these calls with people that are more, obviously you can tell how far we into this. I'm a talker, I'm an outgoing person. And I talk to a lot of people that are not. They're like, I just don't have your confidence. I don't have your gift of gab or whatever type of thing. And I'm like, you just got to do it. You just have to reach out to these people. Hey, would you mind getting on a call? I really am interested in your company. If you never work for that company, who cares? Like, you made a connection. That's one of my biggest, when people ask me for advice, like, you might not like this, but you need to just start reaching out to people and just sending LinkedIn messages and emails and maybe calling them. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
really, I read something the other day about
call them.
People are, they're afraid to use the telephone.
Yeah, oh my God.
There's a whole generation that's afraid to use the telephone. I'm like, gee,
And people are caught off guard by that.
Yeah.
Because people will message me and I'll say, let's do a call, like straight away. Like before, I don't want to get into a whole back and forth with
Mhm.
giant paragraphs. I'm like, and I like a video call because it feels more personal,
Yeah.
but sometimes people don't want to do it. I'm like, can we get on a phone call?
Uh-huh.
And they're like, yeah, sure, I'll do a phone call when I'm driving to and from work or
Yeah.
whatever. And then they open up, and then I get to learn about them. But no, people are like, you're the only, I had somebody say this to me the other day, like, you're the only millennial that prefers a phone call over text. And I was like, maybe, yeah, maybe I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah. Well, maybe going back to some of the mental health issues in our community and in our world, it's connecting with other people. We are
Yeah,
truly tribal in our soul. And when you spend way too much time digitally disconnecting with other people, and I
yeah,
think that is one of the great challenges that we dealt with during COVID, and we probably still haven't gotten over it yet, was being disconnected from other humans because that's
yeah.
not our nature to do that. And we uh, just be curious about other people. I mean, I think that's how I've managed to do 100 episodes of The Bend, is just a natural
Right.
curiosity about people and how they got from point A to point B and the
Ask them questions. Like, I
yeah,
mean, proving this, people like to talk about themselves,
yeah.
especially people that are really successful and really entrepreneurial. Nobody likes it more than for you to say, how did you get into
How
what you were
did you
doing?
get
What
there?
inspires you? And tell
Mhm.
me more about how you came up with this idea for this, whatever. People love to, and then they're gonna like you because you're
Mhm.
interested in them. And maybe fake it sometimes if you're not that interested in what if you find, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what you just mentioned is so, I didn't actually don't even think I really put it together the way you just put it together with mental health. So, and if people, I posted this on, I think you saw I posted my story in
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
September for Suicide Month. I actually had two mental health crises, which obviously did not see coming. I had the mental health crisis of I don't want to practice anymore. I've only ever known one thing my entire life is to be a veterinarian. And so then that fell apart. So then I went into veterinary technology and veterinary software.
Mhm.
And then I did it for a few years. I did it for like 3 years. And then I had a second mental health crisis. And the biggest thing that caused that mental health crisis was exactly what you're talking about. I was trying to fit myself into this box of doing a job, working fully remotely. I maybe would have maybe 2 or 3 Zoom calls a day. Maybe there were some days I didn't have any Zoom calls
Mhm.
where I was just sitting at my desk, not interacting with other humans. I
Mhm.
might go an entire week and not see any humans other than my wife.
Mhm.
And that just was so not me. That's
Yeah.
just not who I am as a person. I love being around people. One of my favorite things about my day is at work when I go to lunch and I go
Mhm.
to the staff lunchroom and I just catch up with somebody I haven't talked to in a
Mhm.
while.
Mhm.
Not having that was really hard for me. So, but then most jobs in veterinary software are not office jobs, right?
Mhm.
So then
Mhm.
I'm like, so that's why I ended up trying to get this job is I wanted to do software, but I also wanted to be in hospitals. And how do I
Mhm.
mash those two things together? But my second mental health crisis was I finally found a second career. I finally found a way that people are willing to pay me for my services without having to practice medicine. And that also doesn't work.
Right.
And I was like, now I was
Now
like,
what? Yeah.
yeah, I truly felt like maybe I'm not meant. And it's like, I'm not like maybe I could feel it starting. I'm not getting emotional on this podcast, but I started to really feel like maybe I'm not meant for this world. Like I tried to be a vet, that didn't work.
Mhm.
Then I went into software. That's not working.
Mhm.
Like maybe everybody, yeah, it's like I'm having trouble
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Maybe everybody would be better off. My wife, my parents, my friends, my coworkers, my boss. Maybe everybody would be better off if I just died.
Mhm.
Because then they could stop dealing with me. And this job didn't work out, and this job didn't work out. And I didn't keep a job for more than 6 months for 3 years.
Mhm.
I mean, the toll that took on my wife, on my family, on my friends, I was like, maybe everybody would just be better off if I just put a bullet in my head.
Mhm.
And then I ended up being hospitalized
Mhm.
for being suicidal.
Mhm.
And then that was my super, super, super rock bottom. And then out of that, and then when I came out of the hospital, I started teching. I think we talked, I don't know if that was before or after we started recording, but then I teched as a doctor.
Hmm.
I think was that before we started? It was the
No, it
open,
was after. Yeah, I think you talked
it was
about it.
after my open secret about, they were
Yeah.
like, you're a veterinarian. Why are you a veterinarian? Why are you teching?
Yeah.
Um, and then that's really when I started building myself back together. I
Hmm.
finally found joy again. For the first time in years, I woke up every day. I couldn't wait to go to work. I loved going to work. I loved placing catheters. I loved monitoring anesthesia. And then I had no money.
Because you were working as a
You
tech.
know, I
Yeah.
was a tech, which, I mean, again, now one of the things I'm really passionate about, even more so than I was. I was always an advocate for increased technician pay, but
Hmm.
then when I made technician pay, I was like,
Uh-huh.
holy, we
Yeah.
need to pay these people
We
more.
we do. Yeah.
Um, but so I had no money. My wife is a middle school teacher. So between the two of us, we were like living paycheck to paycheck.
Hmm.
And so I ended up looking on the job boards for per diem shifts
Hmm.
at other hospitals as a technician, just
Hmm.
so that I could pick up shifts to make more money. And my now boss read my resume and said, "What are you doing? Why are you applying to be a per diem technician when you have I had 4 years of
Hmm.
software experience?" He
Hmm.
said, I didn't know at the time. I was applying to Mount Laurel Animal Hospital, which is like a huge animal hospital in my town. I didn't know that he also owned 6 other hospitals. So he was like, I have a lot of easy vet PIMS related problems that I really think you could help me with.
Hmm.
Would you be willing to come on and be my PIMS director for all 7 hospitals? And I
Yeah.
was like, do I want my dream job? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yes, I would like that.
Yeah.
And it just kind of worked out.
Hmm. So now I know that if I have questions with Easy Vet, I know who to call because
I would say 11 months ago, I would have told you
yeah,
no. I feel pretty good. I could probably
yeah.
answer most of your
Easy,
questions.
Easy Vet is not easy.
Oh God.
Whoever named it lied.
Oh my God. You're hit the number of times, I hate to say, the number of times hard vet, not so
Yeah.
easy vet. Actually, my claim to fame a little bit with everybody likes to tell me about, oh, our implementation was the worst ever. And
Mhm.
so I was at Cornell Vet School. Again, I hope this doesn't get me in trouble,
Yeah.
but I was at Cornell Vet School when they got Easy Vet.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? I don't care. I told this story enough times. I don't care. So I was a 4th-year veterinary student, and it was about halfway through our clinical year. And on Friday, we had UVIS, which nobody's ever heard of for good reason. And on Monday, we were getting Easy Vet. Now, to their credit, they had training sessions for the chiefs, for the residents. They had 0 training sessions for the 4th-year veterinary students. And little secret for anybody who doesn't know, the people who write the medical record at veterinary schools are the 4th-year
The fourth
veterinary.
years.
Residents are not writing the
No.
4th years are writing the record.
Uh-huh.
So they sent us 12, 17, or no, 17 12-minute videos. How many people of the 100 people in my class watched all 17 12-minute videos?
Maybe
We
you.
were 4th-year veterans. We were
You
we
don't,
were
I
like,
mean,
I was
really
barely eating and sleeping and
hanging
showering.
on by your
I
fingernails.
was a 4th-year vet student, right?
Yeah.
But I watched all the videos.
Uh-huh.
So then we showed up on Monday, and yeah, it wasn't great.
Uh-huh.
These poor Kiwis, they put 4 Kiwis in a room that was like the support room, and
Uh-huh.
there was a line out the door. I ended up telling people to fill things for the something was going wrong with the pharmacy
Uh-huh.
request system. For me to get a primary care client, Heartgard or Frontline or Rumadil, they would be waiting for 45 minutes. So I would tell them, just go home. Like
Uh-huh.
I ended up making a video for Senior Skit that was, if anyone's watching this knows, NERD, Pharrell Williams, all the girls waiting in the line for the bathroom. I made a video, all the girls waiting in the line for the pharmacy. There was a line, vet school is 80% women. There was
Uh-huh.
a line of 20 girls outside the pharmacy at all times.
Oh my gosh.
Tell the clients, I was like, just go home.
Yeah.
Just go home. I'll let you know when the Roomadil is ready
Uh-huh.
tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
So whenever people tell me about, oh, you don't understand our EasyVet implement, I was like, nah, you don't know. You don't
Yeah.
know what.
You know nothing. You know
So I
nothing.
used EasyVet for 6 months, and then I didn't use it again until this job, really. So a lot has changed, but
Well, you should have tried to do that when they were in New Zealand and support was what, 20 hours difference in a different time
Yeah,
zone.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
I still joke all the time because a lot of people don't realize that. They say, what do you mean New Zealand? I said, go to the patient tab and say, add a new patient and make it a bird and tell me what kind of bird it is. It's a little kiwi because
Uh-huh.
the company is made by Kiwis, but
And some of the language in the
the
PIMS
Q,
is not language we would use.
yeah, right. The
And
Q, what else? I don't know what else they do.
yeah, because
But
I have a couple of clients who have it, and we're fiddling around with it, trying to do some inventory stuff. And I'm like, what are they calling
what
this?
is this word? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the word is
I will
not.
say I am a devil's advocate type of guy. I mean,
Mm,
if I had $1 every time somebody said not so easy vet, I would
mm.
retire
Oh,
easily.
100%. Yeah.
But so I do play devil's advocate a lot where, yeah, I mean, there is a learning curve for the
Mhm.
program, no question. But in terms of, I use this term robust a lot. A lot of people ask me about PIMS, and there's a difference for me between a PIMS that's very easy to use, has great user experience, user interface, versus a PIMS that is robust. And what am I talking about in terms of robust? If you talked about reporting earlier, if I want to know how many golden retrievers with hemangiosarcoma I saw during the month of February of 2022, can the PIMS tell me that?
Mm-hmm.
EasyVet is very robust. There's not a lot of things EasyVet can't do. It might take you 20 clicks.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to know about the purple and the blue and the green and the red.
Yeah.
Like you might have to really know what you're doing, but it can do pretty much anything.
Mm-hmm.
But for me in my current job, we have 7 hospitals that all share the same instance of EasyVet, and our GPs refer to our emergencies and we send cases back and forth. Like EasyVet is really, in my opinion, I think I got hired after he had been on EasyVet for a year, and a lot of my staff like to say, "Oh, I wish we would have used this program. I wish we would have used this program." I think he made the right decision. I
Yeah.
truly do. I think for what we needed it to be, I don't know that there's other programs that have
They can
quite
handle it.
figured out the enterprise model. Now they will tell you, I'll see how much trouble I can get in on this podcast. These other companies will tell you that they have figured out the enterprise model.
Mhm.
And listen, like make a comment on this video. Dr. Mark is wrong about us. We have cracked the code on the enterprise model.
Yeah.
I haven't been convinced that any of the other programs have quite matched the functionality of EasyVet.
Mhm.
Being careful with the words I'm
Mhm.
choosing
Yeah.
here.
Well, for years and years, growing up in practice, I chose our first veterinary software in 1990, maybe 92, and it was AVS, and then
Okay.
we became Cornerstone.
Okay. I was like, I don't even
Um,
know. Yes. Okay.
yes, yeah, it was Advanced Veterinary Systems, and PSI was the
So
other.
you started with AVS and now AI is writing your soap notes. So you
Yeah.
have seen quite a bit.
It was seen a bunch. It was on a Unix-based system, and then but having grown up with the software as it changed and morphed, I could do anything in Cornerstone. And you're talking about query
Right.
that it was robust, and that was what I was
Yes.
used to, is being able to get in-depth marketing type reports. That if I wanted to go in there and find out how many, in fact, this is how I got started consulting. I
Right.
went in when PetMed Express came into the marketplace, and I was able to run queries in my practice management software comparing the past year to the current year, and how much the sales of OTC products had decreased, and how many requests we were getting for heartworm preventative
Yeah.
to be sold over at PetMeds Express. And when I ran those reports and shared them with Novartis, they were like,
How'd
holy,
you do that?
how'd you
Yeah.
do that? How'd you do that?
You are speaking my language
Mhm.
because one of the biggest things I see, I love that you brought up Cornerstone. My parents use Cornerstone.
Mm.
Um, if I'm ever using the word robust and I'm not talking about EasyVet, I'm
Mhm.
probably talking about Cornerstone.
Mhm.
Now I put Avamark, Impromed, they're in that same boat, the legacy PIMS, the
Mhm.
server-based PIMS. But what ends up happening to a lot of people, this is not like a rare thing. You take a hospital that's on Cornerstone and they have a Debbie Boone.
Mm-hmm.
who, and sometimes they have more than one Debbie Boone.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes the owner is a veterinarian
Uh-huh.
and he knows his way around Cornerstone, or she knows her way around Cornerstone, and the practice manager is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel forced to get a cloud-based PIMS because everybody keeps telling me I have to be cloud-based and that I can't keep using a server-based program, and the vets need to be able to access their records from home and blah, blah, blah. And so I got a cloud-based program because I felt like that's what I had to do. And then they are not happy because the cloud-based programs do not match the functionality of Cornerstone. Now, again, let's count the ways Dr. Mark can get himself in trouble on this podcast. When they did a sales demo, right? So they were Cornerstone users. And when they did a sales demo of enter name of cloud-based PIMS here, and they asked them, can it do this? This is why I talk about salesmen quite a bit in the PIMS industry. What did they say?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely it can do that. It can do everything you can do in Cornerstone, we can do. That wasn't true, right?
No.
So then they sign on with cloud-based PIMS, they do their implementation, and then 3 months in, it's like it's a sweet spot. 3 months in, 3 to 6 months in, they go, oh no. And then it's too late to turn back because
Right.
then what do you do with that 6 months of clients? You can't put them back in. And part of my job for a period of time was dealing with data migrations
Uh-huh.
and how badly those go.
Oh, yes.
But anyway,
I tell
I will
people if
tell
you're
people,
migrating, I say keep your old server,
yes,
keep
for
your
a year.
old software, and keep it for a year.
For a
And
year. Yep.
just
That's
you get
100%.
Mhm.
But I'll tell people, and people are like weirded out by this. I am a very forward thinking. My biggest thing right now is AI, right? I have all my vets, the AI is writing their soap notes, it's writing their discharges. If a vet comes to me who's on Cornerstone, who on Avamark, express some hesitation about getting a cloud-based PIMS for the, even still to this day, like 5 years ago is one thing, but even still in 2025, I say, just, I think you should stay. If they really are worried about it, about the reporting, about, I'm like, I think you should stay. And they're like, what are you talking about? I have to move. Everybody tells me I have to move. And I'm like, give them another 5 years because eventually they're going to catch up. But Caleb, I'll shout out my old boss. Caleb used to say this all the time. He put in the time and the effort. He did the research. He said, how long does it take to make a PIMS? And what he found was it takes 10 years to make a PIMS. Now, look up insert name of cloud-based PIMS here and tell me which ones of those have been around for 10 years. We need to give them more time.
Yeah.
Is my thing. Yeah. In 2030, they are going to be able to do every single thing that your Cornerstone reporting platform could do, but they can't do it right now, or even in 2027 or 2028. Yeah. So it's a little bit like, yeah, do you have a right to be mad? Yes. Because again, on the sales demo, they told you that it could do everything Cornerstone could do, and that wasn't true. But when we take a step back and we actually look at the landscape of the industry, it's not that surprising that they can't do every single thing that Cornerstone, because Cornerstone has been around for 20 years. So anyway, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and people don't realize there are people who, like Joe Axney with IT Guru,
yes,
who work, they can set up cloud-based access to Cornerstone.
But there is Cornerstone Cloud. That wasn't a thing however many years ago, but actually IDEX has Cornerstone Cloud now.
And
but
they can do it.
No, IT Guru, yeah. I mean, again, like, there's this battle going on between, so we talk about baby boomers, right? A lot of the animal hospitals in the United States, I mean, now corporations have a giant slice of the pie, but there's still a lot of animal hospitals that are owned by baby boomer veterinarians 100%. Who are on legacy-based, server-based PIMS, Cornerstone, Avamark, Impromed, Infinity, whatever you want to call it. And we're at this inflection point where everybody's starting to move over into the cloud-based world, and a lot of times it doesn't go so well. So yeah, no, the IT gurus of the world are crucial to help with, and that was my career at one point, was when I was working for when I job in Tennessee. I worked in Texas. I actually moved because that was an office job. They said, no. It was like a consulting firm was kind of how I described it. My boss would hate that. I called it, because we're not consultants, but it was more or less a consulting firm. And we all worked in the office. And he said, I need you here in person. So I actually moved. My wife and I moved to Knoxville. And that was a big part of my job, was helping people navigate changing PIMS and moving from one to another. And it's almost 100% rate where people don't realize what is really involved and how painful it can be. the number of times people said, I had no idea it was going to be this difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, every single person that I met with this week said the same exact thing. And again, and then we could talk about why are there regulations in the human industry? Why we know why, because it's the human industry and there's all kinds of red tape and bureaucracy and regulations, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But why is it that you can switch from one human EHR to a different human AHR, and there is mandated that certain codes line up? That does not exist in the veterinary industry. So if you switch from PIMS A to PIMS B, and you're like, I don't understand. Why isn't my data coming over? Why are my charts are the things are in the wrong spot?
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? This is not a it's not
It's
a
not
glitch. It's not
mapped.
just you. This happens
It's
to every clinic that
every
switches.
single time, every
Yeah.
single clinic absolutely does. And I've been through those migrations as a
Oh God,
manager a couple of times.
they're painful.
They are painful, and I've helped clients do it too. And I just warn them, it's just get ready. And I always
You
tell people,
have to like go into it. This is going to be terrible.
go into it that it's going to be, and because the muscle memory of what keystroke you used to hit mindlessly to get to a screen is not there anymore. You've got to unlearn that and relearn that. And
Yes.
I always tell people, I said, look, go ahead and afford to have your on-site support come back.
Yes.
And because you'll have learned enough of it to where you know what it won't do or what you want it to do, and you can't figure out how to do
Like
it.
so again, that sweet spot, the 3 to 6 months in. Also, just on, you know how many people don't want to pay for on-site support? Because on-site support is sometimes $1,000 a day, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You have to pay, they have to fly them out and blah blah. And people say, I don't want to pay $1,000 a day. Oh my God, please pay for on-site support.
This is the circulatory system of your world.
Yes. They're like, oh,
And
we'll figure it out.
yeah,
Like,
no, you
no,
won't. And I
and then
mean,
I love what you said about bring them back. I think that's super smart.
I've gone into hospitals and they're like, this takes me forever to do this. And they're like being cornerstone. I went, well, why don't you use the clipboard? And they're like, what's that? And they've had it for a year, right? Like clipboard is the hub of everything. All you have to do is click clipboard and you can go everywhere in this whole
It's crazy.
software system.
I always used to say, you know, the saying, it's not true, but the saying about we use 10% of our brains.
Uh-huh.
I have said that about PIMS for years, that we use
100%.
10% of our
Absolutely.
PIMS. And
Absolutely.
we just, it's just that we don't even know. Like,
Right.
again, I'm the same way. Somebody will say, oh, this is so annoying. I hate doing this, blah, blah. And I'll go, you're
Click,
spending
click,
6
click.
clicks to do something you can do in 1 click. They're like, how did you know that? I'm like, I call, well, now it's my job. I call
Yeah.
support every day. I read the support documentation.
Sure.
But like, you know, there has to, like you said, there has to be a certain level of you're not on corner. The number of times people say, well, back when I had Avmark, I could just do this. I'm like I try to say it in a nice way, but like you're not on Avmark anymore.
Right.
Like,
You're not, it's not
forward.
there.
Like we need to learn how to use the system that we're on
What
now.
we have here.
And I'm not pointing fingers at, I mean, this has happened with every single hospital I have ever consulted with about their PIMS. I have the same conversation. I understand that you're frustrated and that you used to be really good at this in Cornerstone. We don't have Cornerstone anymore. We have blah. So now we need to learn how to do it in blah.
Yeah.
And accepting that. And
right.
I'm not saying that working in animal hospitals is really stressful alone. Seeing patients during COVID alone is really stressful, and you don't want to have to learn another thing. You just want to get the dogs in, get the dogs out, treat them, be a vet, be a tech, be a CSR. But if you ignoring your PIMS is to your peril, because it's gonna rear its ugly head that you don't know how to use your program. At some point or another, it's gonna come back to bite you in the butt.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Well, this is something we definitely could talk about for a long time. But I looking back on all these changes and all the career decisions and stuff, if you had somebody come to you for advice, what advice would you give people about if they wanted to move, into a different career?
Yeah, so we touched on some of this already. The way, like, how to attack we talked about networking and how to attack an interview process. And I hate to use the term false confidence, but like fake it till you make it type of thing. Like, even if you don't believe that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, finding a way to portray to that company that you are going to add value to that company. And one of the biggest things I get is, well, Dr. Mark, I don't have any software experience. Like I can't apply for these jobs because I was just I hate just a tech. I was just a tech for 12 years. I literally did this the other day. You have no idea how valuable that is, right? The fact that you worked in animal hospitals for 12 years is huge. All these software people, they don't have that. So even if you read a job description and you are not qualified on the face of it, you should still apply. And again, like I kind of tell them, do what I did. It worked for me. Get on the call, explain to them, yes, maybe I don't know how to use all this fancy software stuff. Maybe I'm not an Excel whiz. Maybe I'm not a Microsoft whiz at all these things. And maybe I don't know how to use Jira or Trello or Notion or whatever. I can learn those things. These other candidates are not going to learn my 12 years of experience. And understand how valuable that is. And again, go into these things with confidence and call it out. Listen, I understand that I don't meet all the qualifications in the job description, but let me tell you all the reasons you should hire me, because I know veterinary medicine. I know what it means to work with clients. I know what it means to be in a hospital, and I know what their pain points are. If you hire me to be a client support agent, if you hire me to be a product manager, if you hire me to be a salesman, when I'm speaking to our clients or prospective clients, I am going to be able to relate to them. I used to say all the time, I could walk into any animal hospital in the US or in the world that speaks English. I only speak one language. I can walk into any animal hospital on this planet where they speak English and I can relate to them. I know what it's like. I spent my life doing this. I know what it's like to squirt anal glands on yourself by accident. I know what it's like to have really difficult conversations with clients. I know what it's like when you have a crazy shift. I know what it's like when you have a great shift. Having that instant credibility is so incredibly valuable, and you need to understand that. And again, even if you've only been I've only been a tech for 2 years, that's still
a bit inside of veterinary hospital. You still know
so
it.
again, like figuring out that sales pitch of how are you going to market yourself. That's my big thing. My other thing on the other side of it is this happens a lot with veterinarians, a lot, or people that, you might have to take an entry-level job. And that's hard. You might have to take a haircut on your salary for your first job. My first job, I took a pretty big haircut to go from practicing veterinarian to guy who doesn't even have a job title. Like, I took a haircut, but the whole point, and my boss at the time said this, you're not going to work for me forever. This is a stepping stone. And knowing, and this is something I had to learn, because I went into every job thinking that I have to make it work. This has to be the perfect job. This has to be my job forever. But understanding it's okay it's going to take maybe a few tries to find your niche and find what you're passionate about. And I understand that not everybody can financially afford it, but if you can eat ramen noodles for a little bit and take an entry-level job and work your way into a company and work your way into an industry, it's about the 5-year plan. Like, maybe you're not going to be making very much money in 6 months, but maybe in 5 years, I try to use myself a little bit as a proof of concept, where it took me 5 years, but I eventually got where I wanted to go. I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was going to want to be a vet. Then I thought I wanted to be a product manager. Then I thought I wanted to be a consultant. And then I want to be a PIMS director. The try and fail thing. I would say fake it till you make it, and you might have to humble yourself.
Yeah. Well, over the years,
those are opposites.
I've given
fake it till you make it and humble yourself.
Yeah.
But I was meaning about like salary and
exactly.
Yeah.
I've given a couple of lectures to the pre-vet students, and I said, look, they're so laser focused on getting into vet school, and this is going to be what they've thought about for the time they're between 5 and 13 years old.
Yes.
Sometimes life is a drunkard's path. It's not a straight shot.
Yes.
And every job that you have, you learn something from. So I've done everything from, obviously I grew up in the restaurant business. So I learned how to wait tables. I was running P&Ls by the time I was 15. Then I started as a part-time CSR in the animal hospital. I left there, went to manage a fabric shop. In the fabric shop, I learned how to go to New York, and I was a buyer. I learned how
I thought you were veterinary the whole time. I had no idea.
No, I learned how to do newspaper advertising back in the day when you did like whole page, half page spreadsheet ads in the newspaper. I left there and went and managed a jewelry department in a big box retailer and sold one of my former veterinarians a watch. And that's how I got the job as the manager of the hospital.
You sold him a watch.
I sold him a watch. And my old boss called me back and said, my wife tells me I need a manager. Come over here and talk to me. And much like you, he said, I don't know what you're going to do, but here. And that was my job description because
Yes.
he'd never had a manager before. And you know what? I figured it out. And obviously it worked out well.
When
So,
we talked about networking and
yeah,
relationships, I'm going to add something that you just said.
yeah.
Don't burn bridges, right? So
No.
I have had 7, 8, depending on how you categorize when I was working for multiple hospitals at once. I've had 7, 8 jobs in the last 4 to 5 years. And I've only burned one bridge. And I really, really, really try hard not to burn bridges
Mhm.
because it comes back. Like
Yeah.
I to this day, I talked to Pete. Remember I mentioned Pete at the beginning? I talked to Pete on the phone 2 weeks ago because he had a question about AI. And
Uh-huh.
he's like, hey, can I ask you a question about AI? Sure. And
Yeah.
then I sent him a job candidate who was somebody who lived in California. I'm like, hey, this person might be a really good fit for your company. And then he
Uh,
gave that person an interview. Like, maintaining these relationships and not burning bridges and networking and
mhm.
is huge. I remember in college, I was like, I don't want to join a fraternity. Why would I join a fraternity? And they're like, oh, well, for the networking. I was like, what are you talking about? Why is that important? I don't really understand. If I'm the most qualified for the job, if I have the best GPA and I have the best experience, I should get the job, even though that person's uncle was best friends with their college roommate. Who cares?
Mhm.
And now looking back, how naive I was. No, no, no,
Yeah.
that matters. Who you know
Yeah.
is big,
It
and
is.
just treat others the way you want to be treated. Treat everybody with respect. Don't burn a bridge. That's huge. Even if you kind of want to burn a bridge,
Yeah.
still
Just,
don't. Like put the
yeah.
matches away.
You
Yeah.
use emotional intelligence and think, it's
Yeah.
a really small community in veterinary medicine. And
Yes. Very small.
it's amazing to me. I will have taught classes 10, 15 years ago out there in the world. And somebody comes and says, I took your class 10 years ago and now I'm working at
Yeah.
this hospital and we need a consultant. I'm like, wow,
The
that's,
veterinary industry, talk about the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I
yes,
we have 2 degrees.
yeah,
If I didn't work with you, I know somebody who worked
who
like
will?
almost never did I not do my internship with somebody that you went to vet school with,
Uh-huh.
or you were a CSR at my friend's practice that was the year above me in vet school. Like
Yeah,
everybody knows everybody
they
in this
do.
industry.
They
So
do.
yeah, no, like yeah,
Yeah.
try to be on as good terms as possible with as many people as possible because everybody knows everybody.
That's right.
I'm gonna go to VMX in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Everybody knows everybody.
they will.
Like I will guarantee that I could count on 2 hands the number of times I have a conversation and I don't know somebody that they know, or I know somebody
Mhm.
that they're, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah, it is that way. Well, Mark, this has been a great conversation and we ran a little longer than our hour, so thank you very much.
Yeah,
But it's
a good
I hope that
episode.
people get a lot out of this because it's definitely showing people that you don't have to be locked in to what you thought you were going to be locked in. And sometimes it's kind of a shame that we decide as a child
Yeah.
what we want to be as an adult, and we are so locked into it that we feel like we can't change. But
You said this. Nobody was more locked into veterinary medicine to
mhm,
being a veterinarian than I was.
mhm,
I wanted to, my parents, it
yeah,
was my whole life.
hmm,
So no, yeah, like if I can do it, it's like, if I can do it, if I can reinvent myself, so can you.
so can you. Exactly right. All right. Well, thank you very much for being a guest on the Bend, and thank you to the audience who is stuck with us and listened to this
Yeah.
long interview and our feelings about software and
Yeah, right.
all the good things. And we um, we hope that you continue to listen to the Bend and that you will join us again on our 101 episode. And if you haven't seen any of the episodes, please feel free to visit. They're all on YouTube and on Podbean and on Spotify.
And
Thank
thank you.
you.
And thank you for everything you do. And not never that everything. Like, I've been following you forever. You do so much for our community. I'm so honored to be the 100th podcast. But I mean, if you don't follow Debbie Boone, I mean, if you're watching this, you should. But no, I mean, thank you. You're such an inspiration. Truly.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you. I appreciate that the effort has been noticed because
oh, absolutely.
I do try. All right.